So we're just going to use the next 30 minutes to discuss conflict management. Now, the reason behind we're going to discuss conflict management is quite pertinent in what we do, because as tutors assessors, we do complete, whether we realize it or not, low-level conflict management at times. And incidentally, we do offer our own conflict management qualification as well, which can be found incidentally on our website. The conflict management we're going to discuss today is not just solely based on security, okay, although a lot of our learners do use the DCM qualification to further career in security. However, we also have learners who do use a conflict management qualification within customer service and customer facing roles, and that has become more prominent recently. I don't know the reason why that is, whether organizations are realizing that because of a number of different factors that have happened this last 2 or 3 years, people's personalities may have changed slightly, and lack of patience may have increased, and additional consumer demand, suppose. But all this can have an impact on different sectors, different customer-facing roles, where someone somewhere has to ultimately deal with the conflict that arises. And just before opening the floor up for the discussion, I just want to bring up a couple of statistics that I have found online through CAPD. And the first article was from 2021, so quite recently, that on average within the UK, workplace conflict costs approximately 30 billion a year. Okay, and the biggest expense is actually staff turnover, with approximately 500,000 staff resigning every year over just disputes. Now, that's not necessarily disputes externally from perhaps customers or clients, but it's also internal disputes as well between teams, between departments. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Another report, incidentally, from CAPD in 2020. 26% of employees, 20% of employers said conflict was actually quite prominent within their workplace. Now, they're quite high statistics when you think about it. Okay, a quarter of employers and almost a quarter of employees both have that constant threat and experience in conflict within the roles. And incidentally, 35% of employees are actively involved in conflict, if that makes sense. It's not only saying and maybe hearing about, but also involved in conflict as well. Now, we all know how busy our lives get and issues that sometimes we may have at home. So you can imagine stress and anxiety and eventual mental health problems that will occur if conflict is included within our work life as well. We don't need it as such, okay? Unless you've got a role, obviously, which deals with conflict as part of your role, where you're trained specifically to use different techniques and measures. So yeah, so listen. I mean, do we have any examples from our team, from the guys on the podcast at the minute? I mean, any sort of even low level, we can start at low level types of conflict we've had perhaps with learners or with others. Yeah, I'm just going to go straight to Sana first of all.
Hi. Yep. Thanks, Mark. Those are some really kind of astounding statistics. I had no idea that many hundreds and thousands of people actually resigned due to conflict. I mean, I have an example from a previous workplace where it was very early in my career, just beginning, and it was an admin level job, but there was conflict. I had to manage a lot of conflict with customers, and I think the company did a lot to kind of help us through some trainings that they used to offer, like team building activities, but also they used to get external training where we used to learn how to deal with really angry customers or customers being very aggressive. And most of our interaction was on the phone. So it wasn't anything very threatening. So it wasn't a face-to-face aggressive interaction. But I think what the company didn't focus on was exactly what you said, that the stats pointed out that actually a lot of it is internal conflict. And it was very kind of like, obviously it was an office environment, so it wasn't, there was nobody being overtly aggressive, but they had a very toxic environment of where people would constantly gossip about each other or discuss the fact that, I'm doing this much, or play up their participation in any activity. And then later on, for example, like there was this one lady where she would completely overplay how much work was involved in a particular task that she had to do. And that day when she was doing that task, she refused to help anyone do anything or contribute to any other of the team tasks. But then when we all started to get trained on that task, we realized it's actually not that difficult, and it really doesn't take that much time, and especially doesn't take an entire day. And that led to a lot of frustration and a lot of backbiting and gossip among the team, and it creates a lot of ill will. So I just felt like, listening to those stats, ultimately, I think they had a very high turnover. So no one person would ever last in that job, in that particular, this is not company wide, but in that particular department, for more than 2 years. That was the max. I mean, some people would actually come and leave in a couple of months. And now those stats actually make sense, because when I look back, there was a lot of this kind of submerged conflict going on, which, is very interesting, because, I mean, I never looked at